Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Walk the ball. Let's Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined by Daniel Starkand and Blake Williams. And we're talking rumors, we're talking shortstops, two things that we'll probably be doing a lot of this offseason. Today, the rumor is that the Dodgers have been linked to shortstop Xander Bogaerts, the guy that I would say is kind of the forgotten one in this group. There's sort of four elite shortstops. Elite might be a strong word. There's four shortstops at the top of the market. They're the 2 through 5 top free agents, according to MLB trade rumors. Bogaerts is in that group along with Carlos Correa, Trey Turner, and Dansby Swanson in some order. And I want to play a little game, guys, before we dive in here on Xander Bogaerts. I put together the stats, the numbers, for each of the top 4 shortstops dating back to the past 5 years. So since 2018 through 2022, here are those 4 guys: Trey Turner, Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson, and Xander Bogaerts in some order. We've got player A, player B, player C, and player D. And I'll just go through these numbers real quick, and then we're going to see if we can identify who is which of these guys. So player A, they're sorted by WAR. Leads in WAR, 301 batting average, 357, 486 slug. Second in home runs amongst the group, second in weighted runs created plus amongst the group, has played the most games. Player 2, second in WAR, very similar slash line, has the highest on base, the highest slug, the highest home runs, the highest weighted runs created plus, very similar in games played. Player C, a drop off here in WAR by about 3.5. Slash line, all still very good, but a tick below, 89 home runs, 125 weighted runs created plus, and 527 games. So by far the fewest games played over the last 5 years. And then finally, player D, well behind in wins above replacement. Slash line, much worse, 93 home runs, right in line. Basically a league average offensive player, 645 games played. Daniel, give me your most confident guess. If you could put one name next to one of these players, who would you put it?
I'll go with player D, Dansby Swanson.
Okay. Blake, do you agree with that one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the lock there.
Okay, that is the lock. Dansby Swanson is player D. Blake, if you had to guess A, B, and C between Correa, Trey Turner, and Xander Bogaerts, give me your most confident guess here.
I feel kind of confident in all of them.
Okay, then let's just go for it.
I'm pretty sure A is Trey Turner.
Okay.
B is Xander, and C is Correa.
Okay, Daniel, agree, disagree, where are you at?
I would agree with that. I'm the most confident that C is Correa just because I feel like he's missed the most games. So A and B is Trey and Xander. And I think Blake had it right.
Okay, correct answer. Blake Williams, 4 for 4 on this one. So Trey Turner top, Xander Bogaerts, and then Carlos Correa, and then Dansby Swanson. I think this highlights on Dansby real quick. This highlights the gap between him and the rest of the guys. He had a great last season, but it shows that over the balance of 5 total seasons, the same number of games, basically, the 99 weighted runs created plus jumps off. We'll get into defense here. That's where he sort of has a little bit of an advantage. But I'll just share briefly. I was shocked at how Xander Bogaerts held up offensively compared to the rest of these guys. I mean, I think it's a pretty clear case that he's the best offensive player of this group. And I hate saying it's not even close, but the batting average is on par with Trey. He's got a higher on base, a higher slug, a higher home run mark, a higher weighted runs created plus. And so I was surprised. So, Daniel, I'll come to you first. Were you surprised when you see the numbers offensively sort of mapped out like this?
I am a little surprised. Like, I know Xander's good, but to me, I didn't necessarily see him on Trey and Correa's level. So I was a little surprised. We'll get into it, but I'd still say I'm lower on Bogaerts than Correa and Trey moving forward. But yeah, I was surprised to see he was that good. I mean, a 300 hitter for 5 straight years with a weighted runs created plus that high, that's like elite numbers right there. So credit to him.
Blake, I mean, you obviously you guessed all these correctly, you and Daniel both. But I mean, were you surprised at how well offensively, again, we're going to get into the rest of this stuff, but offensively, were you surprised to see how well Xander stacked up against Correa and Trey Turner?
Not really. He's been a really consistent hitter for a long time, and when you're that consistent, your numbers aren't going to come down. So he doesn't strike out much. He walks a good amount. he's just been a really good hitter for a really long time. He makes a ton of contact. So he's just one of those guys that's always going to put up good numbers. So I wasn't too shocked that he's been that good.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I think for me, he's sort of the forgotten guy, like probably because he plays in the American League. He doesn't have the brand recognition maybe of Carlos Correa because of all of the off the field stuff with Carlos Correa, the Astros stuff is what I mean there. But I mean, the weighted runs created plus, he's never been below 129 in the last 5 years, which is a remarkable stat because when I look back at those numbers, he has basically been better than Trey Turner, weighted runs created plus wise, every single season for the past 5 years. You look at age, all these guys are in the same ballpark. Xander Bogaerts just turned 30. Correa is the youngest. He just turned 28. Trey Turner's 29 and a half. Dansby Swanson turns 29 in February. Now, the difference between this group, where maybe there becomes some separation, is defensively. No matter what defensive metrics you look at, Bogaerts is by far the worst in this group. If you look at defensive runs saved, he's the only one who's negative over the past 5 years. He's negative 22. If you look at outs above average, he's the only one who's negative in the group. He's negative 15. Just for context there, Correa over the last 5 years has 72 defensive runs saved more. He has 49 outs above average more. Trey Turner is basically 7 and 9, so he's pretty close to zero. Dansby Swanson, positive numbers. Correa, the best. So, Blake, I'll come back to you. Defensively, do the Bogaerts numbers terrify you? I know there's some people who think he was better last year, that he's trending maybe in the right direction, even though he is 30. But is that a deal breaker to you, how bad he has been defensively?
No, I don't think so, because last year, like you said, he was better. What he did is he changed his defensive positioning, so he started playing deeper in the hole, and it led to him having his best defensive season ever. He was 89th percentile, I believe, or 88th in outs above average. So there is a change that he made that led to more success, which is always a positive thing. And the Dodgers are also really good at positioning their guys, so I don't think it's a big problem. Like you saw Corey Seager, he was a pretty solid shortstop for the team, just how they positioned him. So I think you can get that kind of same results with Xander.
Yeah, he was a top 12 defensive shortstop last season by most metrics, which compared to where he was, again, negative in all of these categories where it's almost hard to be negative. And so, Daniel, for you, I mean, we looked at the offense. He's the best offensive guy in the group. He's also the worst defensive guy. I tend to agree with Blake that the Dodgers can position him a little better. I'm optimistic about how good he was last year defensively. When I say good, how average he was defensively last year. Like, do you agree with that? Like, do you write off maybe a little bit of the defensive struggles and say, well, the Dodgers can help get him to at least a league average mark?
I think the Dodgers positioning definitely would help, but I also, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, is he going to stick long term at the position? And if the answer is no, like, is it worth it to give him whatever contract he's going to demand? Like, he's Scott Boras has already come out and said, I read an article this morning, like, hey, this guy's a shortstop, which doesn't necessarily mean he has to play shortstop. He's saying he has to be paid like a shortstop, kind of like the same deal as Manny Machado. Like, he got the big deal with the Padres and then said, fine, like, I'll go play third base. But throughout his entire free agency, I'm playing shortstop. So it, like, if you look at the Dodgers makeup, their roster makeup, like, they need shortstop and outfield pretty much, I'd say. So if you think Xander could be your guy at shortstop, then, like, long term, then I think it's okay. If you look at the farm system, you don't really have a shortstop as of now that's going to be ready in the next year or two or whatever. So I think that's kind of what you have to ask yourself. Is this guy going to be our shortstop for the next 5-6 years, or is he going to have to move to third base in a year or two? And then if so, do you want that contract? I'd say the defense is concerning, but I don't think that's the number one thing you have to evaluate. I think when you see an offensive player as good as Bogaerts, you definitely look at that first before the defense.
Let me throw one more data point in here, which is contract. And I like to rely on Major League Baseball trade rumors. They do contract projections that I think are at least give you a talking point and a place to start. Because I think it's another place where Bogaerts, if these numbers end up being true, make me feel a lot better about him. So Bogaerts is projected to get a 7-year contract at about $27 million a year, compared to Correa, 9 years at $32 million, Trey, 8 years at $33.5 million, and Dansby, 7 years at $22 million. So if I told you that Xander Bogaerts was going to make $5 to $6 million less per year than Trey Turner and Carlos Correa, and would have a shorter deal by 1 or 2 years. Again, to me, this is yet another thing that's working in his favor. And so we'll close out the show with this. You guys, I mean, we're all at different stages in where we're digging into these guys and making decisions and evaluating these. But Blake, I'll come to you first. If these numbers were true, like if I told you these are the 4 contracts that these guys are going to sign, where would Bogaerts rank in that group of 4 for you? I know we've talked and you'd like to explore some trades, and I've talked about maybe just putting Gavin Lux at shortstop, but if we're just limiting ourselves to you're going to sign one of these 4 guys at these numbers, who do you like the most and who do you like the least?
I think Xander is my number 1 target regardless of the contract, so him having the lowest projected one is like just the icing on top.
Okay.
What's I think is interesting about him is he's really similar as a hitter to Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, and those are the 2 other contracts the Dodgers have given out long term. Like, he's not going to strike out, he's going to walk, and he's consistent. Like, that's what they look for in their hitters. So I think he is the top option there for them. So I would love having him at that contract, and I think the Dodgers would be very intrigued by that too.
Okay, Daniel?
I think he's second for me. I'm still Team Trey. I know, the numbers you shouted out, Trey would be making a little bit more. But I still think he brings more to the table, like as far as the all-around game. Like Xander might be a little better, hitter, but Trey's better everywhere else. And I think I've brought this up a couple times now, but I think the bigger bases is going to play really in Trey's favor, at least the next couple years before you start to see a decline in speed. But I'd still have Trey 1, but Xander's right there at number 2. I think Correa would be last for me. Not only is he making the most money, but we know the history there. So to me, the combination of that puts him last for me. So I'd have Xander 2, Dansby 3, and Correa 4.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. For me, when I dug into Xander for the first time kind of in depth, I was pleasantly surprised at how these offensive numbers pan out. Blake, I agree with what you were saying. This feels like the profile of the type of guy that the Dodgers have been interested in historically. And I would also add that I'm just a big believer in, like, you have to at least think about what year 4, 5, 6, and 7 of these contracts are going to look like. And I keep thinking, and I know we've talked about this before, so I won't beat the dead horse, but I have questions about how Trey Turner how that contract is going to age. Xander, if you're telling me his calling card is his offense and his power and his approach at the plate, that feels like the most sustainable thing. It's why I think Correa is probably going to age better as well. I just don't like Correa. So to me, Bogaerts is kind of like, it gives you a lot of what Correa would offer you at a slight discount and without any of the baggage. Obviously, he's much worse defensively, so there is a drop off there. But I'm with you, Blake. I think Xander's at the top of this list for me. And I've long said, hey, just put Gavin Lux out there. But if Xander Bogaerts, if you could get him for just 7 years at $27 million per, I would like that trade a lot. That signing a lot. Even if you can only put him at shortstop for the next 3 or 4 years, you figure it out after that. He can play third. The offense, I think, will live. He could play DH. I think if you've got a bat, at least you say, whatever, in year 7, he's still going to be hitting. We don't know where he's going to be playing defense, but he's still going to be hitting. I feel good about that compared to maybe, what does Dansby Swanson look like in 7 years? Or what does Trey Turner look like in 7 years? So I've got Xander 1. Correa's last. I don't want anything to do with him. Dansby's hard just because the money is so much different. Like $12 million less for Dansby Swanson compared to Trey Turner and saving a year off the contract. I don't think I'd go 7 on Dansby, so Trey's probably second, Dansby third. But if you could get Dansby for like 5 years at that number, I don't know. I might be interested there. So let us know what you think in the comments below. Again, Xander Bogaerts, a guy that the Dodgers have been linked to, a couple different folks. I know Jeff Passan had it in his article that the Dodgers are interested. So let us know what you think below. Xander, Trey, Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson. Rank those 4, given those numbers. Again, the contract, 7 years, $27 million for Xander, 9 years, $32 million for Correa, 8 years, $33.5 for Trey, and 7 years at $22 million per for Dansby Swanson. That's Daniel Starkand. That's Blake Williams. My name is Jeff Spiegel. As always, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day. And of course, go Dodgers.